Louis, Joe, and Sunny Klotchis Jilligy, thank you so much for joining us this week on New Mexico in Focus.
Thank you for having me.
Louis, you live on the Arizona side of the reservation, where an area that's been hit hard by COVID-19. You tested positive in April. Take us back to your first experience being tested positive.
The first experience was 3 days prior of being tested. I was feeling symptoms of the sore throat and the tiredness. I was actually kind of thinking I'm sleeping more than usual and sleeping during the day, which is not me. And it just started going to the body aches and the headaches, and that's when I decided to go in when we were taking our walk, and I almost faded and fell. So my wife decided to take me into the ER. So it was quite an experience. I tried being in denial about it, saying that it's going to be okay. It's not what you think it is, but it actually was.
And you had a painful physical experience. You've been out of work, and you've also tested again to be able to go back to work. Is that right? How were people around you reacting to you having been tested positive?
Pretty much can't go anywhere. I was the only person at the time to make supply runs, and of course, with Bash is the only store here, and I work over there too. I was denied access in there, but which I understand, it's for the safety of everybody that works there and for the customers there. So they denied me access. But you get treated differently, especially when everybody knows you. But other than that, I mean, everybody comes around, and they've been also supportive with us and the kids. But the second round of testings that I did was the first one came back negative, which I was very excited. And a week later, the second one came back positive, which kind of shook my world again. But I'm hoping for the best for this next coming round of testings.
And how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. No symptoms whatsoever. But when we last talked, I was kind of fearing about the sore throat and the headache, but that was only that one evening. But other than that, I'm feeling great. I really don't know why I tested positive when I had no symptoms, and I still feel fine right now.
And Sunny, you are currently studying and teaching here in Albuquerque at the University of New Mexico, but you're a longtime journalist covering the Navajo Nation. And you know the Shiprock, New Mexico communities well, being familiar with that area. The Navajo health departments are talking and reporting about that Shiprock, Gallup area being hard hit now. What are you seeing is most concerning in that area, Sunny?
I think that I just did some reporting there, I think about just over a week ago, which really changed my perspective on doing in-person reporting, but that's another story. But in terms of what I've seen, I think that people are a little unsure, I think, of what to do or how to deal with what's happening still. I mean, I was there during the lockdown, and it seemed that people were adhering to the lockdown and the rules that are connected to that. But there was still traffic, and you hear about people still visiting and still not taking things seriously outside of that. So I think that they're still in this kind of phase of learning, of really accepting even what's happening and how this is affecting people. I think the biggest thing that I've been hearing and seeing is that maybe a lack of education in terms of how does the virus work exactly? How do people get it? You hear a lot of, wash your hands or social distance, but I think especially with older people, there's this lack of knowledge in terms of exactly how do you get this? How do people get this? So that's kind of what I'm seeing in that area.
And do you feel like those New Mexico communities get as much attention as other communities on the Navajo Nation?
I think right now there's a feeling that they aren't. There is a feeling that they aren't because, I'm fairly active on social media as well. So there are things that I hear about from sources and just from, within my own community. I mean, my parents live not too far from Shiprock, so I'm kind of within that when I go back and see them. And there is a feeling of being forgotten, I think, and I feel like that's just not now, but it's kind of a known thing that, we are forgotten sometimes on the New Mexico side of the reservation, especially near the Eastern Agency. And as you get farther away from the reservation and kind of the middle of it, there's that feeling of, well, when are we going to get what we need? And I know in response to that, places like Shiprock are putting together their own relief organizations and finding ways to respond in their own way, because they're used to that. They're used to kind of being forgotten sometimes.
And with your reporting, you had a recent piece that was in the New York Times talking about why the spread is so rapid on the Navajo. We see a lot of mainstream news reports talking about infrastructure and housing needs and water, but can you talk about what your piece really, when it comes to culture and the way of life of Navajo people?
Yeah, I think with that piece, when they approached me about writing something, I had to really think about what was the core of why things were spreading. And the biggest thing I could think of is my own actions. What do I do? What does my family do? How are they acting? And I could see that it was really hard to imagine being separate from each other. It was hard for, say, my mom, for instance, to stay away from her brother to make sure that he has what he needs. And so even now we're still finding that difficult. I'm finding that difficult. And so the pinnacle of that piece, of that column, was just to show that, yes, it is hard, but it's the hardest. How do I say this? It is hard, but usually the answers for what we need to do are in those hard things. And what's hard is staying apart and not being together. And that's exactly the answer for our way of curving this, is to do what's hardest for us to do. And that's to not be together. So.
And Louis, for you, what's your next step?
I'm open for a negative on this test because I am going to be donating my blood, and hopefully it will help out. And my inspiration for that was my little cousin brother wasn't admitted to the ICU in Phoenix, and he had the virus, but he's recovering right now, and he's doing great. But he was my inspiration for this. But that's my plan for that, and return back to work, and hopefully we'll adjust to this new normal.
And what's your message, Louis, for people, the Navajo people, as you're a person who has been through this personally and it impacted you personally? What is your message to the Navajo Nation?
Listen. Don't be stubborn. Listen to the first responders. Listen to our Navajo Nation president. And please stay home and follow the curfew. And like Sunny said, the hardest thing is staying away from family, and that is really hard. Try to resist that and just listen to your first responders and thank your first responders, the nurses, the doctors, the officers, and the grocery stores, the retail members. Please thank them. And that's all I have to say, is just listen to them.
And Sunny, what is next in your report? There are a lot of stories to cover on the Navajo Nation. What's your next story?
Well, I have a project I'm working on right now. It's actually a year-long project that has to do with the pandemic on the reservation with Searchlight New Mexico, an investigative journalism team out of Santa Fe. And I still contribute to the Navajo Times when I have the chance, but I'm trying to finish the semester out. I have grades to do for my students, and, trying to finish that part of my life so I can dive back into reporting full time and help essentially where I'm needed. That's just kind of how I look at it. I'm always going to be a lifelong storyteller. And I think that there's little that we can do from afar because we have to stay away. But I feel like this is the most that I can do, is continue to tell people's stories, and whatever angle that might be, and whoever's story that might be, and wherever it might be, near or off the reservation, for to be able to share what are the experiences that are happening, and hopefully use those as messages to continue to help fight this virus in our nation.
Well, Sunny and Lewis, I want to thank you for joining us this week virtually on New Mexico in Focus here on New Mexico PBS. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.